Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 19th, 2017 City Council meeting. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Commander Rayner, would you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director Maloney, roll call.
Faria, Johnson Santos, Lewis, Silvera, Villalta.
Here, we do have a quorum. Consideration of approval of agenda. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Lewis.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Mrs. Silvera.
A second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Silvera to approve the agenda as stated. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None. Carried. Let's go on to public forum. Members of the public may address the City Council members on any item of public interest that is within the jurisdiction of the City Council, which includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items, and speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Detailed guidelines are posted on the Council Chamber informational table. When you approach the podium, please state your name and city of residence. And if you have a cell phone, please turn them off or place it on vibrate. Okay. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak at the public forum?
Good evening. My name is Mark Marshall, and I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the new superintendent of the Los Banos Unified School District. So I'm just wanted to come up and say that I'm looking forward to our partnership. That's it.
Oh, don't leave. I went to the board meeting the other night, and they have a 3-minute time limit, and after 15 minutes, I sat down. So we discussed the stoplight at the intersection of 11th and 152. And Dr. Marshall, I read your letter today. I just want to extend my thanks for the support and in sending the letter to Caltrans, District 10 Director. And I will be letting you know, as will the Chief of Police and our City Manager, if anything comes up in the meantime, because we want to get that intersection signalized.
Definitely.
So thank you again.
You're most welcome, and I have something for each of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay. See, do we give out his phone number now or later? All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak at the public forum?
Good evening. My name is Dave Hogue. I'm the founder of a company called Los Banos, and I own a business here in Los Banos. I'm too nervous, so I'm just going to read from this. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Dave. I'm the founder of a website called My Los Banos, a community portal and marketplace that I hope will answer a very big question, a problem that I faced in Los Banos since I opened my store in 2004. And that problem is about 62% of the people that live here are commuters. And I've always tried to figure out a way to get them into my store because I close at 5 o'clock. So I hope that my answer to this is going to be My Los Banos. This website, basically, and I want to stop reading. This website is basically, it's an e-commerce type of a system. And what happens is people can come in, they can sign up, and they can sell their products online. So, my neighbor can add her products, and my other neighbor can add his products, and we can all sell our products online. We can reach these commuters, whether they're on their lunch break, wherever they are, we can get to them. They can look at our products. They can view our products. They can see our stores. There's many things that you can do there. We have forums. We have news. We have a public calendar where events get aggregated from other places into our feed. We have a business directory that's free. People can list their businesses in our directory. So we're growing every day, but we wanted to introduce it to you. So if there's anything that maybe you can suggest to us that we might want to include in it, that would be very beneficial and very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. You did well. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at the public forum?
I'm Rhonda Lowe from here in Los Banos, and tonight I'm here on behalf of the Los Banos Downtown Association to give you an update on our second annual Farm to Table Dinner. It's going to be held September 21st, and it's going to be held in the middle of 6th Street, just like we did last year, where we close off 6th Street and serve a gourmet meal right down the middle of 6th Street under the stars. The event was started to bring honor and education to our community about the importance of agriculture. Many people live in this community and really don't have a clue just how important agriculture is to what we do in our town. So we decided to do the Farm to Table Dinner, which is not a new event. It's held all over the United States, but it was new for us last year. Last year was a huge success, and so we're not going to change a lot of things that we did last year. We're just going to add a couple of things to it. One is we're adding a second entree, so you'll get 2 entrees with your meal, which is even more food than what you had last time. The other thing is we're establishing a scholarship program for local students that are going to be following up in college, looking to follow in the ag business or the ag field. And that will be established. We'll have 4 $500 scholarships from the proceeds of this event. And the other thing I'm really excited about is we're going to have a Farm Family of the Year award, and this will be an annual award that we'll give out, and again, drawing attention and honoring a farm family. So we would love to have you come if you can. We've already surpassed 50% of our ticket sales, and we're still 2 months out. So that was, I think, a tribute to last year's event. We had a lot of people that were on the waiting list, waiting for us to get the tickets printed and out to them. So we're encouraging people to get their tickets early. We don't sell tickets at the door. It's all pre-sold tickets. And it's going to be an amazing, amazing evening, and we'd love to have you come. And I'll leave flyers with Lucy to hand out to you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at the public forum?
Good evening, Geneva Brett, Los Banos, here on behalf of the American Legion Auxiliary. We've taken over the Los Banos Veteran Honor Program out at the cemetery, where you saw the last 2 years we put flags on all the veteran graves, or we attempted to put flags on all the veteran graves out there at our cemetery. It's a really challenging process because not all the graves are identified. The volunteers did hundreds of hours of work to identify the graves, and last year they put stickers on a lot of them, but the stickers were dime-sized. And they were yellow, so in the heat and the water out there, you couldn't identify them. So not everybody got a flag on Veterans Day. So what we're doing is we are asking our community to sponsor grave markers. These are 6 inches, they say U.S. veteran, and there is an aluminum rod 17 inches. This goes into the ground, and this stays permanently at the grave. On the back of it, there are loops for the flag to go in. The flags were donated last year. I donated 600 flags to the program last year. We have all that we need. We'll continue to use them. So our goal is 600 of these. We don't have 600 veterans buried out there right now, but what we want to do is give the extra ones to the cemetery, and as needed, they will put them in place. This has been approved by the cemetery district. We've asked for permission to do that. These cost $14 a piece. You can buy 1, you can buy 100, you can buy however many. We're not going to put any of them out until we have enough to cover all of our veterans out there. And this will enable us to enhance our program from just doing it at Memorial Day. This will be so simple a child can do it. So we can involve more organizations within our community to place the flags. So we can put them out there on Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day. So I'm going to leave some of these flyers here. Again, the grave markers are $14. Checks would be payable to the American Legion Auxiliary, Unit 166, P.O. Box 1290 here in LB. American Legion Auxiliary, P.O. Box 1290, they're $14 a piece. And we're not going to put that, if you put on there who they're in honor of, that's fine. At this point, we don't have a place to put that recognition. We're keeping track of it ourselves, and if there's a way that we can do that, we will definitely do that. So we do love our veterans. That's us in Los Banos, and I would ask each of you to sponsor a grave marker for one of our vets so that they're acknowledged. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at the public forum? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum, bring it back to council level, and we'll go on to item number 6, consideration of approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine. We voted on in one motion unless removed from the city council agenda by a city council member. And tonight we have Director Maloney.
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrant numbers 205399 through 205816 in the amount of $2,443,981.62. Fourth quarter investment report for fiscal year 2016-2017. Minutes for the June 21st, 2017 City Council meeting. City Council Resolution number 5872, accepting 9 grant deeds for right-of-way dedication associated with street sidewalk corner improvements as part of the K Street storm drain improvements. City Council Resolution number 5873, authorizing award of construction contract for K Street storm drain improvements to Taylor Backhoe Service, Inc. in the amount of $1,246,956.85. City Council Resolution number 5874, authorizing the city manager to file a regional surface transportation program exchange program fund claim form for fiscal year 2016-2017 in the amount of $408,388. City Council Resolution number 5875, adopting a revised budget for the fiscal year 2017-2018 as it pertains to increasing revenues and expenditures by $1,500 in the General Fund Recreation Department. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
All right. Is there any city council member who would like to remove an item for discussion at this time? If not, do I have a motion? Mr. Silvera.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Mrs. Santos?
Second.
Motion by Silvera, second by Santos to approve the consent agenda as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None. Carried. Okay, let's go on to item 7, public hearing. If you challenge a proposed action described herein in court, you may be limited to raising those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described herein or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Public hearing to receive public comment and consideration of levying properties for weed abatement services performed during the fiscal year 2016-2017 or prior for areas of land located in the city of Los Banos, Merced County, as follows. Assessors parcel numbers 0. Do I have to read all these? Assessors parcel number 026, 082, 022, 025, 282, 006, 025, 031, 011, 082, 770, 002, 016, 082, 770-019, 032, 082, 770-054-063, 082-357-012, 081-200-001, 005, and 081-200-001 and 012-081-0200-006. Okay. City Council Resolution number 5876, authorizing levy and collection of assessments for weed abatement within the city of Los Banos. All right, and we're going to go to Finance Director Williams.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight I'm asking to adopt a resolution authorizing the levy and collection of assessments for weed abatement throughout the city. These are any invoices that are outstanding after April 2016 or from the last time we did this, which was about the same time frame last year. I did put an Exhibit A assessment amendment on your right in front of you because we have had a couple people make payments before tonight, and so we will reduce it from 51 assessments down to 42. We have received $2,428.80 in payments, and one that we removed because the property owner changed prior to the assessment, and that was for $1,012.44. So the new total that we will be assessing tonight is again 42 parcels and the total dollar amount of $8,067.84. So tonight I'm just asking that you hold a public hearing and that you adopt a resolution with the amendment to the Exhibit A attachment authorizing the levy and collection of assessments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Mrs. Lewis. Then I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sonia, on the $1,012 when that was removed, you said it was removed because of change of ownership. Did the owner who owned the property at the time it was assessed, did that owner pay for the bill?
No, that owner has not paid for the bill, but the current owner of the property showed proof that the ownership had changed hands.
Right.
So we can no longer assess it because they did not, the person who owns the property now did not own the property when the parcel was cleaned. So we have to remove it from the tax roll. We can't assess their property, but we can try other means of collection.
So at the time of assessment, the original owner did own it. But he sold
correct.
it or whatever.
He sold it in the time frame. We're only allowed to assess the property annually, and so we just missed the cutoff, and so we'll go after him through collections.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that someone was going to be responsible.
Yes,
for that
the original property owner, the person who owned the property at the time of the assessment, is still held responsible for it.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Is there any other council member who would like to ask a question at this time? Your microphone? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Any other council member who would like to ask a question? Mr. Silvera?
So just by going by the assessment numbers, there, by the new amendment, Exhibit A amendment, amended, I should say, looks like one of the 39 of those is one property owner, correct? Because if you look at 082770-002 all the way through 063.
Yes, there is one property owner from that parcel all the way down to 63. That's correct.
And then my next question is, then again, I don't know if this is a proper forum for it, but at some point, if they're habitual violators, or we just keep assessing them the certain and just putting it on their taxes every year?
That's correct.
And do they? And then what?
We get it paid through the property taxes. So when they make the property tax payment, we receive our money.
So it gets assessed to their property tax bill.
That's correct. That way we ensure that we collect it too if the property tries to change hands. So we very rarely miss them. Like in the instance of the one that's $1,000, we usually make the time frame and we can collect the money through this assessment.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Okay, let's go to the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on City Council Resolution number 5876? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum, bring it back to council level. And do I have a motion or any other discussion? Mr. Silvera.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 5876, authorizing the levy and collection of assessments for weed abatement within the city of Los Banos.
Okay, do I have a second? Mrs. Santos?
I second that.
Motion by Silvera, second by Santos to approve City Council Resolution number 5876 is read by title. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Item B, public hearing. To receive public comment consideration of an amendment to conditions of approval for the site plan review 2013-02 to allow a 24-hour operation of an existing self-serve automatic car wash for Circle K Stores Incorporated located at 410 North Mercy Springs Road, APN 424-120-015. City Council Resolution number 5877, approving an amendment to the conditions of approval for the site plan 2013-02 for Circle K Stores Incorporated located at 410 North Mercy Springs Road. And Director Elms?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So just a little bit of background on this particular project. In August of 2013, the Los Banos Planning Commission approved site plan review number 2013-02. They also approved a negative declaration and recommended approval of conditional use permit number 2013-25 to the Los Banos City Council. Then subsequently on September 5th of 2013, the city clerk received an appeal from the New Canaan Missionary Baptist Church challenging the Planning Commission decision. And that appeal was to the City Council. Then in October of 2013, the City Council opened a public hearing, heard discussions, and then approved the Planning Commission's decision with additional conditions of approval. One of those conditions of approval that were incorporated based on October of 2013 was condition number 8. There were several conditions that were added that night that are included for you on page 2 of your staff report. There were 6 conditions, but the issue that's brought before you tonight is focused on condition number 28, which states that the car wash shall not operate between the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. So the proposal before you tonight is from Circle K Stores, Inc. They are requesting to be allowed to have a 24-hour operation of the existing self-serve automatic car wash. The applicant has completed an acoustical analysis, which is included in your staff report, to determine if the noise generated by the increased hours of operation of the car wash would comply with the city's noise ordinance. Circle K, this particular request has been brought forward because they have received requests from customers to use the car wash during restricted hours. As the gentleman stated during the public forum, we do have a high number of, high population percentage of commuters within our community that enter into town after 7 p.m. and Circle K on many of occasions do receive requests to be able to utilize the car wash. However, to be in compliance with their conditions, they must not allow any operation past 7 p.m. Also, I've included for you the Planning Commission minutes, but it was discussed at great length there with the Planning Commission, the focus and the creation of that condition during the appeal, as the appeal was brought on by the church just adjacent north to the project site, which is highlighted for you in yellow on the PowerPoint presentation. That focus was to help mitigate any adverse effects of the operation of Circle K on that church. So the location of Circle K is 410 North Mercy Springs Road. It's the northeast corner of Mercy Springs Road and Overland Avenue. Like I stated, it's highlighted for you in yellow, and then the actual car wash is outlined for you in red with an arrow. To the north is the New Canaan Missionary Baptist Church. To the east is Overland Courts, which this is an aerial prior to construction, but what is existing today is it's under construction currently, but it's the Overland Courts Senior Housing Project. To the south is undeveloped commercial property, and then to the west is what used to be the old Circle K. It's Mi Barrio, gas and food mart, as well as vacant undeveloped land. So the city's noise ordinance requirements essentially establish the maximum levels for exterior noise when measured on other property. Our noise ordinance addresses the distribution of noise over time. So if it's a shorter period of time, it's a louder amount of noise. So it's more decibels is allowed. So if it's 1 second, just a real quick beep, you're allowed a higher amount of noise for just that one short period of time. Whereas the decibels are required to lessen, to be shorter, less loud as time extends. So over a 30-minute period of time, the noise should be softer. So this is a table from our municipal code that of the noise ordinance that basically establishes categories, and that is based on the amount of time. This is the duration by minutes that the code establishes, and then it establishes during the daytime, this is from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., what those decibels should be, and then at nighttime, that is from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then what those noise levels should be. And what's included in the presentation is the residential noise settings, which it's residential and sensitive, which a church and residents are considered to be sensitive. Based on the acoustical analysis that was provided by Circle K, during the daytime, they would be under category 3, which is 65 decibels. And then at night, as there are less cycles of the car wash, it would be 60 decibels. So the acoustical analysis, in which I apologize that within the acoustical analysis, it is a little bit difficult to see the site plan where the measurements of the acoustical analysis were done, but there was at 3 locations. Number 1, and it's highlighted in the acoustical analysis, circle 1, it is the church location, which measured 53 decibels. So that is the noise of the car wash at the church location. Then the second location was on Circle K's property behind the car wash. So that would be in the storm drain area, the landscape area, prior to entering into the car wash. So closer to the Overland Courts area. And then the third location of that site plan of the acoustical analysis is Overland Courts. So it's on the other side of the 8-foot wall. And that location measured 49 decibels. And I do want to clarify that the church, that measurement was on the other side of the 8-foot wall. So the daytime hours that the blower would operate, according to the acoustical analysis, would be approximately 9 minutes an hour. And that's because the blowers are not on constantly as the car wash is operating. It's only when that car hits the sensor at the end of the cycle to pass through the blowers. And the blowers operate for about 1.5 minutes. And so during the daytime, anytime between essentially 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. and in accordance with our categories of the municipal code, it's analyzed that those blowers could operate between 9 minutes, and that's cars one after another just entering into that cycle. So 9 minutes within 1 hour. That would be category 3, which according to our municipal code would be required to be 65 decibels. And as you can see on the church site, we're at 53 decibels. And at the Overland Courts, we're at 49 decibels. And then at nighttime, those hours of the blower would operate approximately 4.5 minutes per hour, as there would be less cycles operating in an hour, but taking on a more conservative approach with the highest amount of vehicles that would be assumed during an hour period. The blower would be 4.5 minutes. That's 3 cycles within that hour. And that would be category 4, which would allow for 60 decibels. And both locations did measure under that 60 decibels, even at the night measurement. So the acoustical analysis did conclude that the existing Circle K store would comply with the applicable city noise level standards while operating 24 hours per day. and assuming that the existing 8-foot-tall masonry sound wall would remain in place and that there would be no alterations made to the existing equipment or equipment configuration. Public comment. Public hearing notices were published in the Los Banos Enterprise and mailed to adjacent property owners within a 300-foot radius on June 2nd. That was July 7th, 2017, and no comments have been received. However, there was one letter of support from the Overland Courts. Willow Partners is the developer. The president did provide a letter of support of the 24-hour operation of the car wash, which is included in your staff report. The Planning Commission reviewed this item on June 14th, 2017. And at that conclusion of that meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the request to allow the 24-hour operation of the existing self-serve car wash. Typically, the Planning Commission would have been the decision-making body as a site plan review is under their purview. However, because it was an appeal, it was reviewed as de novo, which was seen as new under the eyes of the City Council. So based on that, it needed further consideration by the City Council because those conditions were crafted under the appeal. So the recommendation, and this is consistent with the Planning Commission's recommendation, would be that the City Council would adopt City Council Resolution Number 5877, approving the amendment to the conditions of approval for Site Plan Review Number 2013-02 for Circle K Stores, Inc., located at 410 North Mercy Springs Road. And that concludes my presentation. William Scarborough from Circle K, a representative of Circle K, is here to answer any of your questions as well as myself.
Hey, Council, do you have any questions at this time? Mrs. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stacy, the only concern that I really have about this project is that even though the developer of the senior housing project has agreed to this, no one is living there right now. And I have concerns with the location and the operation 24 hours a day, that there may be some complaints that will start to come in of seniors not being able to rest with the operation of the car wash. So with that, I would like the council to consider adding some additional language to the resolution that once complaints start coming into the city, that the city would require a new acoustical analysis for the car wash or possibly returning to its original hours. For me, it's just kind of a little bit premature to approve this, although I think it may go through tonight. I really would like to see some people living there before this operation changes. And so if the council decides to approve it tonight, that would be my recommendation, is to add some additional language in there so that it covers the housing complex that's going to be there, and there is an avenue for the city to mitigate any noises that will come through as a result of the car wash.
Stacy, when is the new what do they call it? Overland Court's going to be finished?
They will be coming before the City Council on August 2nd with their Community Facilities District. That's the next item for public hearing that they're asking to postpone. And after that, they will be ready for final occupancy. They've already received temporary occupancy, but after final approval of their Community Facilities District annexation, then they will be ready for final occupancy.
Within the next
And
few
that would
months?
finish their project. That
Okay.
would be August 2nd.
Okay. There's no additional equipment being installed, correct?
No, there is not. So it's using the existing self-serve car wash with the existing blowers that have a condition that the blowers have a blanket that point downwards to mitigate the noise.
Is there, within our purview, to approve this for 3 months, since it won't be an inconvenience, since they're not adding anything. And then if we, at 3 months, it comes back to us, and if we receive complaints, as Mrs. Lewis said at that time, or when their occupancy starts, or whenever we see people moving in to the closest towards the blowers, to find out if it's actually not going to be a nuisance or not. Because I can't tonight approve this without more information as to whether it is going to bother citizens or not. I mean, that's just my feeling. Mr. Vaughn.
I think at that point, the only discretion you would have would be to do another acoustical analysis, because you have an ordinance that sets forth what the standards are. I haven't looked at the sound ordinance recently, but I don't think there's any discretion if they're below the levels that are required in the ordinance. I don't know of any grounds for denying the application if they're below that. If you recall, when this condition was first amended to the site plan, there was no acoustical analysis, but now there is, that says they're below what your ordinance says they need to be below in a sensitive area. So I think the only discretion you have at this point would be to ask for another acoustical analysis, as opposed to terminating the request, if that makes sense. So for instance, if I want to come in and have blowers and I'm below what the sound ordinance says I have to be, there really is no basis for denying that request. Whereas when you first had that condition as part of the application, there was no acoustical analysis. So at this point, I think the only discretion you have would be that if you received complaints, that you could call it back and request a more comprehensive acoustical analysis, or an acoustical analysis by someone of the city's choice.
Yeah. Well, I have a real problem, and I'll tell you why, and that is that the Overland Courts is being built, and they must have looked at the review to see that that was not a 24-hour operation. And now they may be subjected to noise levels, whether they're below or whatever, you're still going to have that low hum. And that's not why someone built that facility.
Well, Overland Courts is supporting the project, though.
Yeah, I've been around noise like that, and it's not pleasant. So let's go on to the next statement. Mrs. Santos.
Well, I had a question. Have we had issues with other car washes? We have several car washes in town that are 24 hours. Have we reported any issues about the other car washes in town?
We have received reports regarding Fast Track Car Wash that is adjacent to residential uses on Nevada, and the complaints that were received there were due to the loud music that's being played in the cars as they're in the queue waiting to enter into the car wash. There is not a sound wall between the two, between the residential uses and the commercial use in that particular case, and that residence that is adjacent to it did complain that the music was too loud for cars, but we didn't receive any complaints due to the blowers.
And this might be a little bit further, but we haven't done any type of analysis on that one, have we?
No, we have not.
Okay. Just wondering. Thank you.
Mrs. Lewis.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to follow up based on our city attorney's statement. And one of the things that I did notice is that, our range for the numbers for the acoustical determinations by the city. Do you have any idea, Mr. Vaughn, or maybe Stacy knows, when the last time we looked at these numbers, if they're current as far as what other cities are using throughout California? Can someone answer that? No?
Although looking at our entire zoning ordinance as a whole, we are pretty consistent with other communities as they all copy and paste from each other. And so our table is very similar to many other tables of the categories. We copied it from somewhere else. And I do believe this particular ordinance is about 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Vaughn. I do not have my municipal code in front of me, but that's something typically that I've not seen updated regularly or annually.
Okay, because the nighttime hour analysis is a 4.5 minutes per hour, and the limit break is 5 minutes, which is just 30 seconds off. So it's at the top half of what the allowance is. Now, I'm sure that, because of the law, that if it's not at 5 or above, that we still have to review it as the next category below, which would be 1, or category 4, actually. So, and that's why, I kind of drew the caveat with, wanting to add additional language in there. To me, this is premature. It's just kind of, a slip under the door before this project is completed. The other car washes in Los Banos, although the Prime facility is probably the one that's used the most by residents in Los Banos, but it doesn't operate 24 hours a day. So there is that rest period for the people who live in the residential neighborhoods. The other ones outside of Los Banos are not around residential homes, and the new ones that are coming in are not going to be around residential facilities. So we have an unusual circumstance here. And that's my biggest concern, is that, as you get older, sleep is hard to come to you. And I don't know what time of day this analysis was done, but when you have traffic out on 152, and apparently this was done in February during our rainy season, I don't know that there was much of any kind of comparison that you can have for cars passing through while it's raining so much. But nonetheless, it was done. And I think at this point, for the city's sake and legality, that our best option would be is to add the language in there that if a complaint comes in, then the city needs to start working to take action to either require another acoustical study or to return it back to the original state, which would be what the original hours are. I don't know if we can do that or not, but at the minimum, we need to be able to protect the citizens who are going to be moving into that complex, regardless of whether or not the developer is approving it or not.
I wholeheartedly agree. You come to us with a recommendation because you wanted a car wash and it was originally approved at not 24 hours. And now we hear from our attorney, well, now they have the right to do 24 hours. And if that's the case, it just sours the whole approval. What they're saying is that unless we can show some kind of cause, that we have to approve this. Well, I'm not going to approve it because I don't have enough information. I just don't think this is right, and I'm not going to be pressured into doing something until I find out what the effect is on the citizens. So, Mr. Vaughn, what kind of language can we craft so this is not a done deal, that this could come back if we start receiving complaints, or how many complaints?
Well, I think Mrs. Lewis' suggestion is the best. Number one, it gives the car wash some time to chart the history of how many uses are actually happening between those hours. Mm-hmm. And then their data would be stronger in terms of matching it to the acoustical analysis and the limits. So I would say her suggestion that if at some point in time the city's receiving a significant number of complaints to the point where something needs to be done, is that there be language that the applicant will perform at the city's request another acoustical analysis utilizing a consultant of the city's choice. And then you have an analysis that comes back with some real history, real data to it. You may not ever get a complaint. You may get one complaint in 5 years. So I think that what you have before you tonight is their analysis that shows they're below the city standard in terms of the decibel levels for sensitive areas. So, but they made some assumptions, and the assumptions were how many. I think what I heard Stacy say, that the daytime assumption was that there would be nonstop cars.
Cycle after cycle within an hour.
Cycle after cycle. Did you say the same thing for nighttime?
For nighttime, it was 3 cycles in 1 hour period.
So if they track the data as to actually what the actual cycling is, that would be stronger data in terms of matching it to our chart and our decibel limits. So.
And see, what I'm looking at is whether it's one person or it's 100 people, that one person who lives in that home behind there could be tormented by that sound that we created.
Well, but what I'm looking at is what the ordinance says they're allowed to do.
Correct. I understand that. And I'm trying to desensitize this somewhat to the point that we're protecting future residential.
Keep in mind the property owner that you're trying to protect is supporting the project.
Yeah, but he doesn't know what's going on because there's no one living there. That's not even a fair assumption.
Well, but he's the property owner.
That doesn't hold any weight with me. I'm sorry. Mrs. Lewis, did you have anything else to say?
Don't forget to open the public hearing.
Yes, I will. I'm going to let Mr. Silvera speak.
So I'm just curious, as I've actually been not through the car wash because my truck, I'm a little nervous, my truck might not fit through that particular car wash, but the blowers are on the western end of the car wash itself. So that's just something that I want everybody to be noted. It's on the furthest end that it possibly could be away from the new development. And I tend to agree with Mr. Vaughn is they have done their analysis, and they've, by the letter of our own law, our ordinance, they are meeting the qualifications. That being said, I do think that some language in there that says that, and you know, if there's a reasonable amount of complaints, that we would ask for another analysis. That gives us the ability to go back if there is a problem there, because I know I would hate the fact that if I moved in someplace, you had this noise, but allow them to get some real data, not just because honestly, just my own thought process here, that 7 p.m. till 10 p.m., you might be at the 3 or 4 cycles an hour. I just don't think once you get to midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, that you'll be lucky to get one every once in a great while. But that's just, you don't know that for sure. So until you had some real data to be able to look at. So I'm definitely looking forward to the comments from the gentleman from Circle K once we open up the public hearing. But I can see myself supporting the motion, or what's in front of us tonight, seeing as how they've met the requirements that they were supposed to meet, but also putting some language in there that says if this does become a nuisance for us, it becomes an issue that we have the ability to go back and take a look at. It's just my thoughts for now.
Thank you. On the noise levels, Stacy, you said these haven't been revised in 20 years. And have the industry standards changed? I mean, do we know if they've changed or not?
I don't believe so. We still measure sound the same way. That is all done pretty much the same exact way through decibels. And so, no, as far as I can see, and especially what other cities, with that I'm in a network with, I've not seen them update their noise ordinances.
Okay. So let me ask this question. We put language in, as Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Silvera suggested, to do a sound analysis. Then would that give us the ability then at that time to modify the hours if it came back and there were complaints and another sound analysis of the city's choosing were selected? Mr. Vaughn?
It would be limited to the hours that they exceeded the noise levels. So if they're exceeding the noise levels during certain hours of the evening, I think then you have the basis to deal with the hours of operation. So I think it all depends on the noise analysis and whether they're under the decibel levels during certain periods of time. Keep in mind, that's on Mercy Springs Road. I'm not a noise person, but I have a feeling that the ambient noise from the highway possibly is louder than the car wash noise. But I know that that's a highly traveled, during the summer especially, truck travel, and that the ambient noise might even exceed our noise levels. But I'm not a noise engineer.
Correct.
I think you're on safe ground by requiring that if there are complaints to the point where the Community and Economic Development Director believes there's a problem, that she has the ability to have them perform another acoustical analysis. I think that's your best best course of action after you listen to the public hearing.
Could we set it at a number of complaints? Because I worry that we're going to have differing opinions as to what is actually a significant amount of noise and what isn't.
If I were you, I would trust your staff to determine whether or not it's such that it's a problem, and they will know when it's a problem, and they can trigger the next analysis.
Okay. And for the record, if we get multiple complaints from one person that's living behind there, does that constitute a significant amount to trigger a request if someone just can't sleep? Because I worry about that one person, and I've been through this before, and it's tormenting.
Well, again, I suggest you leave it up to your staff to determine whether it's risen to that level and go from there. I don't think quantifying whether it's 1 or 100 complaints is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Pardon me?
I think the word any, if we add language into the complaint, the word any would take care of that.
Okay.
Rather than trying to quantify a number.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I want to give everyone an equal chance. If this thing is a problem, I hope to God it isn't. Then, if we have any complaints, I would like to see it that way.
Well, so if you have a hypersensitive person who any noise would trigger a complaint, then I don't know what an acoustical analysis costs, but I don't think it's inexpensive. So again, I think the better course of action is to let your staff evaluate the complaint and potentially come back here and ask for direction as to whether that has triggered the condition that you're anticipating looking at tonight. I just think it's kind of shaky ground to quantify it, and without hearing exactly what the complaint is, I think you ought to trust your staff to determine whether or not it's become a problem.
Mrs. Santos?
I was going to say, instead of putting numbers of complaints on an amount of time, would that be helpful as to how we can judge how much sound or possible complaints we might have, just so we're not, because like I agree with what Bill was saying, that you have that one person that's very sensitive about noise and throwing complaints. I mean, I don't think that accurately accounts for that whole area.
I'm not being rude, but what if you were that person?
I don't necessarily have a problem with noise, but
so that's what we're worried.
Yeah, but within a time period, if we were to go over it again instead of that one person, not saying that one person not as important as 10 people, but if we were to go over this again within 6 months or after people have started moving in, I feel like that would be a more accurate reading than, and I hate to even put it this way, just the one person putting in complaints every month for an issue like this.
Mr. Vaughn?
You can ask the city to log the complaints and have it come back to you in 12 months, and you can determine whether it's a significant number of complaints, or staff can determine before that it's significant. So if you get one complaint in a 12-month period, you then determine whether or not you believe that's enough to trigger an acoustical analysis versus 100 complaints by the same person or different person. So possibly the applicant has a solution as to what's okay with them.
Yes, come on up if you'd like to speak. Then I'll open up the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Bill Scarborough with Land Development Consultants based out of Phoenix, Arizona, here to represent Circle K. one point before I have a recommendation, if you will. As far as the nighttime hours are concerned, even at a Category 3, it's 55 decibels. The highest we hit is 53 in relation to the church, and it's 49 as it relates to the senior apartments. And with that said, even if we were running cars through nonstop all night, we would still meet the criteria of the noise ordinance. With that said, I do have a solution that perhaps this will help, is that we would be agreeable to an acoustical study, but limit it to restricting us just to nighttime hours if for some reason that acoustical study comes back and the data is different than what we have today. So ultimately looking for absolute approval for daytime hours, which is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and then have the acoustical study analyze the nighttime hours when the sensitive uses would be even more sensitive.
Mrs. Lewis?
If you agree to that study, for how long are you looking at having your equipment there to register the sound?
Apologize, ma'am, I'm not an acoustical analysis engineer. We'll do what is deemed professionally appropriate to quantify that information.
Okay, I see. I have no idea what that would be, so I thought maybe you had some preconceived notion as to what it would be. Okay.
And would that be of our choice?
Consultant of your choice?
Yes.
I would assume that's okay. Standards are the same.
And Stacy, they're going to move in when? How many months?
August 2nd. After August 2nd, they'll have their final occupancy.
Okay. So if we gave them 6 months, that would be 4 months of occupancy. Actually 5 months of occupancy, and give us a pretty good reading how people are depending upon if those units are sold or occupied, the ones nearest the wall.
I don't have an issue with that.
With 6 months?
Yeah, that would be fine with me.
Yeah.
Because I would assume, based on the fact that there's a waiting list for those apartments, that they're going to fill up almost immediately. So hopefully that will give the city a good indication as to whether or not people are able to rest without the noise of the blower. And I realize it's on the western side of the property, but there are some apartments that are, fairly close to that. And that's my major concern, is that the people who are there are able to rest, not that you're asking for 24 hours, but the residents are able to rest. And I would have no issue with a 6-month study.
Nor would I. Okay. Thank you. Let's open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on ordinance number 5877?
Kathy Ballard, resident of Los Banos. I spoke at the Planning Commission in regards to this. I don't live in the area. I don't know what it's like. I have no idea. But my concern was the ambient noise when the city settles down. Any kind of noise is amplified. It's the reason why my microphone at my store has to be turned down when it becomes evening hours. I don't have Pacheco running, it's quiet, and I have a hotel behind me. And that was my concern, is that when you don't have that. The acoustical tests that were taken by the Circle K people were not done at night, only because the car wash isn't open. There was no way for them to take a test to see how loud it was at that period of time. You're going by a measurement that was done during the day when you have all the other ambient noises going around you. So I don't know if that would be different when they take it at night when the car wash is actually running. I have no idea. I talked to the other 24-hour car washes, and they said, that most of their business ends at 8 or 9 o'clock. They don't have people there at night. The only people they have there at night are the ones who are vandalizing and trying to get the money out of the boxes. And in fact, that's why Chevron is closed right now, because somebody vandalized their equipment. So I don't know the necessity or how many people will even be going there at that time, but it is an unmanned car wash. It's a do-it-yourselfer. And so you have no control over their music, their, whatever they're doing in regards to going through the car wash. That was my concern. I don't know if the noise would be that bad. I had the machinery itself. It's just the occupants using the car wash is what my concern was.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak at the public forum or a public hearing? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public hearing. Bring it back to council level. And do I have yes, Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments by the council, I'd like to bring forth a motion on this agenda item.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see here. I'd like to make a recommendation that the City Council approve resolution number 5877 with adding to the resolution language pertaining to if complaints are registered with the city by the residents, that the city can require a new acoustical analysis, and as agreed upon by Circle K, there will be an analysis from 6 months of the start of the operation of the car wash for the nighttime operation.
A mandatory 6 month.
Mandatory 6 months.
Yes. Okay. Do we have a second with that for the amendment? Mr. Silvera?
Not quite a second, but a comment, if I could, is I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Is if Mr. Scarborough made mention that they would be fine with that as long as it just considered the nighttime hours of operation, so that they would still be good between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., correct? And then they would be on the overnight hours.
That was my understanding.
That was my motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, and if that's the case, then I'll second that motion.
Okay, and one other thing, did you want to add that it's a sound engineer of the city's choice?
Yes, I can add that. In addition to the motion made for the new motion is to also add that the acoustical analysis company would be a company of the choice of the city of Los Banos.
Yeah, and I'm good with that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the, we're going to vote on the amendment first. Motion by Lewis, amendment is stated, second by Silvera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None. Carried. Okay, and so now do we vote on the,
You didn't have to do it that way, but she just amended the resolution. She didn't amend a motion. So it's my understanding that you adopted the resolution as submitted with her amendment to the resolution.
Okay, so you're good with it?
Yes, I hope I understand what the amendment was.
I'll explain it to you.
Thank you. So it's just a clarification.
Yeah.
Are you saying that in 6 months the acoustical analysis is mandatory, or we're going to come back and report how many complaints there were, and at that point it triggers the analysis?
No, the analysis is mandatory.
Okay.
At 6 months. Yes. And it's only between the hours of 10 and 7, right? Yes. Yes. And that's all the governance that we're doing with the mandatory sound analysis of a company of the city's choosing. And if any complaints, they will also come back. Okay. Everybody good? All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's go on to item C, public hearing. To receive public comment and consideration of amendment and annexation number 10 to the City of Los Banos Community Facilities District, CFD, number 2002-01, Public Safety Services, relative to the Overland Courts Senior Affordable Housing Complex located at the northwest corner of Overland Avenue and Rockport Drive, to be continued to August 2nd, 2017. And do we need a a motion?
Yes. to
Yes.
continue the item
Thank
to
you.
public hearing.
Okay, Mr. Silvera?
I have a question. I'm just curious. It doesn't state a reason as to why it was being continued. Does anybody have any insight as to why?
The developer, the property owner, has asked for postponement to August 2nd. He was on vacation, and he needed more time to review the waiver and the election ballot. Although he does understand that his final occupancy is based on him signing those documents, because it is a condition of approval.
So let me just, he wants to review the ballot that he's the only person voting on,
Yes.
and he wants to review the waiver.
It is very technical language that he just wants to make sure he understands all of it. He just said he needed more time, but that he would provide us the documents that we needed.
And he was very well aware that
Yes.
he needs that to have.
Yes, I have that in writing.
Very good. So then, Mr. Vaughn, we need to open the public hearing first? Or can we just make a motion to
I think
continue?
you just can continue unless you can open it if there's anyone here to speak on this item.
Well, I'll just ask. Is there anyone who would like to speak on item number C, to receive public comment and consideration of amendment annexation number 10, the City of Los Banos Community Facilities District CFD 2002-01 Public Safety Services relative to the Overland Court Senior Affordable Housing Complex located at northwest corner of Overland Avenue in Rockport? Anyone wishes to speak? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I'll now close the public hearing. Bring it back to council level. Mr. Cervera.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to continue this item to the August 2nd meeting.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Lewis? Okay, motion by Silvera, second by Lewis, to continue to August 2nd, 2017. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Item number 8, report on temporary sign ordinance and options for consideration. And Economic Planning Director Elms? Oh, it's not on? There we go.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So, as you may recall, back in May of this year, staff was directed by the City Council to prepare a report on the city sign ordinance and to focus on temporary signs. So, a bit of a background on our sign ordinance. It was developed in 1987, Ordinance 771, and that's the foundation of basically what our sign ordinance consists of today. Since then, there have been amendments as new technology has changed, new fads had came around. But in 2010, the most significant change was done with ordinance number 1095. It was a part of the zoning code update, and at that time, it was requested by the City Council to create a sign committee, which did consist of the businesses, and there were 2 meetings that were held and lots of input from the business community with the sign committee, which created the basis of Ordinance 1095. And that is the ordinance that we're operating with today. So our current sign ordinance is temporary signs are located in Section 9-3.2818, which consists of 2 categories. It breaks it down between windblown devices and banners. And I do want to note that this is just temporary signage. This isn't looking at the entire sign ordinance, which covers exempt signs, special signs, wall-mounted signs. This is purely temporary signs. So those are classified as wind-blown devices and banners. Wind-blown devices are designed as defined by our municipal code to attract attention. These are pennants, flags, balloons, or other inflated objects or reflected attachments to sign faces. They must be located on private property, and they need to be 5 feet away from the public right-of-way, which in most cases is the sidewalk. And they're allowed only 1 device every 50 feet of street frontage. So if you want to have a flag, it needs to be 50 feet away from another flag, or if you're in a shopping center and somebody else has a balloons, for instance, then it needs to be 50 feet away from your next door tenant. And you're allowed 1 for every 50 feet of street frontage. It needs to be used in conjunction with an event or sale. It can be displayed for 30 days maximum, 4 times a year. That does allow for 120 days with written notification to the planning director. So banners are defined as the locations are limited to light poles, buildings, fences, or similar anywhere on site, except where it may cause a vision or public safety hazard. They must be located a minimum of 5 feet behind the public right-of-way, which is the sidewalk, allowed only one device every 50 feet of street frontage, and used in conjunction with an event or sale, so similar to the wind-blown devices. The only difference here is, yes, they are allowed to have those banners for 120 days with written notification to the planning director, and they're subject to a sign review, so they have to receive permit approval by the planning department, or community and economic development department as we're titled now. So variations. The code does allow for variations of the sign ordinance, and is based on that requests for variations of the sign standards can be done through a conditional use permit process, and this is for permanent and temporary signage. A conditional use permit, that process requires planning commission approval. So the options that are presented before you tonight after the outline, the breakdown of our temporary ordinance, is one that we could establish a process for an over-the-counter minor adjustment to the temporary sign regulations to accommodate a case-by-case relief without having to apply for a conditional use permit. In reviewing various other cities, not only within the county, but that are of similar size and around us, other cities do allow for a minor adjustment on a case-by-case, but these are very minor. There are boundaries that are set, and should the council decide to choose this, it would require an amendment to our sign ordinance, which would start with the Planning Commission and a recommendation from the Planning Commission up to the City Council. The second option would be to create specific regulations for auto dealerships, auto sales, and or other categories of businesses. Also, in reviewing other cities, it was typical to see special regulations for auto dealerships or auto sales or specific categories of businesses. So they would define them by shopping centers or major or minor businesses and define them. This too would require an amendment to our sign ordinance, which would start with the Planning Commission's recommendation. And then the last option would be to make no changes to our current sign ordinance, but to keep in mind that we do have the variation allowance, the remedy that allows for a conditional use permit for permanent or temporary signage that would require an approval from the Planning Commission. With that, no changes. Obviously, there would be no adjustments to the sign ordinance, but do keep in mind these options are not limited to the 3 that I have before you. Should you have other options, I'd be open to those suggestions as well, please. And that's what I'm asking from you tonight, just some direction so that staff can be sure that we're on the right path and we have direction to move forward. That concludes my presentation.
Mr. Silvera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I was the one who brought this as a council member request. I do appreciate you guys spending some time to give us some options and looking through the options that you presented, staying along the lines of what I had originally was asking for. I think I like option number 2 the best, is to, and I know that now that I know that we wouldn't be recreating the wheel here, that this is being done in other places. Is the option number 2 is to create a specific sign regulation for auto dealerships, auto sales, and or other categories of businesses. I think that solves what I was looking to get done. So that's my recommendation. See what everybody else has.
Mrs. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After reading this and getting some clarification on the duration of time that a banner could be up, and especially with the banana flags, I was always under the assumption that The original request for a temporary sign would be for 30 days, and then there had to be some lapse of time before they can apply for the next duration of time to put a banner up. But apparently it's, 120 days consecutively without any break. And then, it came to me that, well, after that 120 days, then perhaps they can tack on another 120 days. But apparently, the way it's written, that it's within 1 year, I believe, but not a calendar year.
Yes.
That once that 120 days is up, let's say they get it in September or through the end of the year, then they have to wait until September the
Yes,
next
they do.
year before they apply for another permit. I really don't like any of the choices, including the one that we have now. I think when this was written, it was poorly written and without a lot of forethought for the community and the city as well. When I have to drive down Pacheco Boulevard and look up in the sky at some advertisement on the top of a building or multiple advertisement in front of me, that's an attractive nuisance. And I'll just give you a scenario that I'm thinking of, and that is if somebody's driving a car and they're looking at something off the road and they run into the back of another vehicle, they're in the wrong. But then if we as city officials are creating an attractive nuisance for somebody to look up and look away, then as deep pockets go, everybody starts getting in the mix for the suit. The person who gets hit is going to sue the person who hits them, and the person who's looking at flags are going to sue a business and perhaps come after the city because we allowed this particular ordinance to stand in place and allow all this nuisance to be put out there and have people get their eyes off the road. So I personally, I would like to see the city just rewrite not only the temporary ordinance, but to just rewrite our sign ordinances altogether and just make one fell swoop and take care of this while we're on the subject. I think too often people are taking advantage of the loopholes in the way this ordinance is written now. And when I go to other cities and I see multiple advertisements out there, whether they be banana flags, whether they're A-frames, whether they're H-frames or whatever it is, it really degrades the community. And personally, I don't think that's something that I would want to do to Los Banos. We're trying to make this a nice community for people to live in, and part of that is how our community looks. So that would be my recommendation, is that we rewrite the temporary ordinance for the ordinance for temporary signs, and also include in that our sign ordinance, if we need to take a look at that. We had a situation not too long ago last year where we had a business that decided they did not want to, I guess, follow the temporary sign ordinance, and they erected their own wooden sign on Pacheco Boulevard when there was a monument sign already there and a space on that monument sign to advertise their business. But there's nothing in our ordinances that tells a person that they have to put their advertisement on a monument sign that's been provided for them. So there's just some things that we need to tighten up and maybe relook at and revisit as far as our sign ordinance, whether it's permanent or temporary. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Santos.
My question is that for option one, the case-by-case basis, is that, would that be, I guess, do you get a lot of people coming in for, trying to get the temporary signs up? Would that be a hardship on your office, I guess,
No, the type of minor adjustment that I could see would be possibly they have a frontage that is just shy of allowing them to have possibly two temporary signs, and if we had judgment where, oh, they are only 2 feet off of having that full frontage, then that would be something we would take into consideration, but it would have to be extremely minor. Otherwise, most of the time we have very conservative discretion, and everything would go to the Planning Commission for their ultimate approval. We don't want to be making decisions that would create a nuisance and that the Planning Commission wouldn't agree with. So most of the time it's a very conservative, if though it's 2 feet or so, and they would have been allowed that, and it's a very minor adjustment. That looked to be the examples that I had seen from the other cities. That city specifically was the city of Clovis. We looked really hard at their sign ordinance and what they're doing, because that city, as their downtown is developing, they do have really good guidelines, and that was one remedy that they provided for specifically their temporary signs, and it seemed to work for them.
And in Clovis, is that also option 2? They allow, or I guess you said they're more case by case instead of just.
Yes, so Clovis is a more case by case, where we saw dealerships were just other various communities that we had pulled up. None of the cities within Merced County provided for special designations for businesses, but other cities in the valley like Hanford, Tulare, those had different classifications of different businesses that also seemed to work well for their cities.
Okay. Well, I personally feel that it's good to know. Thank you for the research on option 2. I didn't know personally that the other cities had special ordinance for the cars on auto dealerships and whatnot. I personally like the option 1, where the case by case basis and decided on by our planning commission. Although I know we discussed at length about dealerships being essentially a special kind of exception to that rule. But I do like the fact that our planning commission can go over that and be a part of that process. So that's kind of where I stand with it.
What's the right-of-way? How far off the right-of-way do these signs have to be?
5 feet from the public right-of-way.
5 feet?
They must be 5 feet back from the sidewalk.
From the inner part of the sidewalk?
It would be from the property line of the public right-of-way.
Okay.
So where their private property starts, they need to be 5 feet in, 5 feet back.
Okay. We just dealt with something where someone can come in, we approved something 6-7 months ago or 2 years ago in 2013 or whatever, and they say they have the right to come back and modify, and there's not much we can do. Well, there's something we did do, and I'm happy with the council for that. So how do we stop the Me Too with this? If, say, a car dealership wanted a special set of flags, and then someone else came in, like a restaurant on the highway, and wanted that special set of flags too.
So as it's set right now, our existing ordinance, they'd be allowed to go through the conditional use permit process if they wanted any variation from what the ordinance allows for them to do today, which is the 120 days. So using an example of a car dealership, should they want that temporary signage to be permanent, 365 days, they would need to go to the Planning Commission for that determination. Likewise, should that restaurant decide, well, I really want this banner to be all year long, they would need that same requirement through the Planning Commission, that discretionary approval, which requires an investment in not only money, but time. And it's not guaranteed that you'd be given that.
Mm-hmm. So there's no Me Too then? I mean, someone can't say that because they got it and another person is turned down. Is there a problem with that? I mean, do we have the discretion to say this business is more apt and would need the type of signage that would be over and above what they would be allowed? And this other business is turned down because it's a case-by-case judgment, as you don't need all that.
I think Mr. Vaughn is.
Maybe I can answer.
All right.
First of all, we envisioned option number one to be just a minor adjustment, that someone's got a special situation and that their special situation can be dealt with over the counter by the Community and Economic Development Director and her staff to accommodate someone on a special basis. Maybe they need their temporary sign one more day than 30 days, something very minor, without having to go through the expense of a public hearing and a conditional use permit. So the idea was to establish a process that's more of a friendly process, streamlined process, if you will, for those situations that are almost within the scope of the temporary ordinance, but they got something going on that just kind of puts them outside the ordinance. So that was what option number one meant to resolve. And I will tell you, option number one and option number two aren't mutually exclusive in terms of having them both. Right now, someone who feels like they want more signage than the code allows can go through the CUP process, both on a temporary basis and for permanent signage. Option two, we saw a number of ordinances, more than one, probably a number of them, that specified that there are some types of businesses that are different from other types of businesses. And the ones I saw consistently were auto sales and auto dealerships and gasoline stations, that their signage is different. And the justification is that auto sales is mainly an outdoor type endeavor. You're displaying your inventory outdoors. A lot of the sales go on outdoors, those types of things. And so they seem to be able to draw a distinction between a car dealership, for instance, and the type of signage they might need versus an accountant or a lawyer or someone like that. So the answer to your question is, I think with careful drafting, and I'm thinking we can come up with a category of businesses that, because of their particular type of business, they might be treated differently in terms of their signage. We don't have a preconceived idea of what that would be, but we do think there are different businesses out there that require different signage or could require different signage. So I don't have a problem with the Me Too issue. If I'm a car dealer and these are the rules I'm going to go by, or if I'm an accountant, these are the rules I'm going to go by in terms of signage, I think we can justify those differences. So that was the idea behind item two, because what's happening is, particularly to auto dealers, they're using the temporary signage to actually have a permanent sign. So if we took a look at exactly what signage they might need over and above, for instance, an accountant's office or a lawyer or a drugstore or whatever, we could maybe deal with some of those issues that arise.
So right now, with a few hoops, they can do the year round anyway.
Well, it was interesting when Mrs. Lewis was speaking. When we did the last change to the sign ordinance, we were going to do a total overhaul of the sign ordinance. And then the Special Citizens Committee was formed. That committee, my recollection, because I sat through all those meetings, their sole focus was on temporary signage, and it was a room full of small business owners who were very adamant that they wanted temporary signage. And in fact, we expanded temporary signage because of that committee. Prior to that ordinance change, you could only have temporary signage for, I think it was 10 days, 4 times a year. But the small business community was very adamant that they needed temporary signage to compete with the Walmarts of the world in terms of signage and those kinds of things. So that's where the banana flags were not allowed before we had that committee formed, and that came straight from the small business community was those types of signs.
And that's what worries me, that we're going to go back to an old circus tent again, because we had banana flags that were ripped, they were tattered.
Well,
we had people sticking, like Burger King would stick a sign, 5 burgers for $1 in the lawn.
I think we possibly could do better, and we can come back to you with a more restrictive temporary sign ordinance for those types of that type of signage. Or, you can have all kinds of options that we could bring back to you. These were just some ideas that arose from Mr. Silvera's concern about temporary signage and how we were interpreting that.
So would you like direction just to kind of go ahead and craft something and bring it back to us?
We'd like to know, first of all, if you like either of options 1 or 2. So and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. We could come up with something that includes both 1 and 2. If you want to go beyond that, Mrs. Lewis is suggesting she'd like to take a look at the entire permanent and temporary. We're happy to do that. We could tighten up the temporary language so that there is some time in between the length of time you have temporary signage. I think we can make it a better ordinance. So we're just looking for direction tonight. A full overhaul of the sign ordinance is a big undertaking. Overhaul of the temporary portion of it, not so much.
Personally, I'd like to see you come back with some options incorporating 1 and 2, and come up with some options based on what the research that you found already.
So those are focused on temporary signage. We did not focus at all on permanent signage because that was not our direction.
Correct.
Right now, you have a minimum amount of signage that is allowed per business, and all they have to do is get an over-the-counter sign permit. If they exceed that minimum amount of signage, they have to go through a CUP process.
And personally, I want to tighten up the old circus tent too. So when it looks rotten, it looks ratty, that we come up with some kind of designation, or if the planning director says, hey, this has got to come down, something like that. So we don't get back into that same mess.
Well, I think the complaints I'm hearing are mostly centered around the temporary. Someone puts up a piece of plywood on that kind of sign.
That's another thing. Yeah.
The banana flags, the A-frames, that kind of stuff is what I'm hearing is causing people a little bit of heartburn.
In unspecified locations.
So we can, and that's all temporary signage. And we can focus in on that and create something that incorporates options 1 and 2, and you can choose from, you can do whatever you want. You can throw them out, you can start all over, whatever you want to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Silvera.
I like 1 and 2. I think 1, I'm glad you said that they're not mutually exclusive, and I think that we do need an option for that minor variation, that we just give you the opportunity to, if you got 48 feet instead of 50 feet of separation, can we get a variance to have 1 extra sign? I'm fine with that. My concern is that if we look at the whole sign ordinance, it's not going to solve the original reason why I asked for this to be brought forward. And at least not, it's going to take a lot longer. Because I'm guessing to redo the whole sign ordinance for the city of Las Vegas is going to be months and months and months before we have something back. And then it doesn't kind of why this whole thing came up, why I brought it up. It kind of puts that on a back burner. So I would like to see us move forward at this point with the temporary sign ordinance with incorporations of number 1 and number 2 in there. And then maybe at a later point, when we get this off of our table, come back, and if somebody wants to make a council member request to bring the whole sign ordinance back at a later time, then do that. I just don't want the portion that I asked for, that I did get a majority support to have you guys bring back some options on. I don't want to get that, for lack of better words, to be hijacked by this whole massive undertaking of redoing the whole sign ordinance, and then it still doesn't accomplish what it was trying to originally accomplish. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that.
We should do what we said we do first. That's kind of the way I feel. We had majority support for temporary, then, it's like it's like the Affordable Health Care Act. I mean, you can't do the whole thing at once. I mean,
So option 2 could also be changed to the permanent signage as well as temporary signage. So if we're going to create different parameters for different categories of business, I can see that could be partly permanent signage, partly temporary signage. But I think we can come back with some suggestions in a working document that you can see how it kind of falls together.
Also, based on discussion, I think it would be beneficial to also look at exempt signs, which are the I-frame and A-frame signs, specifically as it pertains to the highway commercial district. There is no size regulation to address Councilmember Lewis's comments about that particular business that did abuse it. To avoid that potentially happening again in the future, we could just address that as well while we're looking at it and create some parameters similar to what the rest of the city is having to follow.
I mean, I want to tighten this up so the loopholes that are there now are closed, and for permanent and temporary signage. And what can we do to beautify our city in the process too?
Yes. And those are where our loopholes are currently at, within the exempt signs and within the temporary signs.
Mrs. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to just let the council know that my statement about the permanent sign ordinance, I just kind of threw that in. I wasn't trying to piggyback that on top of the temporary ordinance. Certainly, that wasn't my intention. I just realized that it's an ordinance that needs to be updated at some point. But some of the suggestions that I have here that I've written down in regards to the temporary sign ordinance is time duration, specification of material, size, and location, type of signs that can be allowed to be displayed or not allowed to be displayed, and we need to give them examples of that because people have their own imagination about what's allowed and what's not allowed, and where these signs can be displayed. I know that a couple of years ago we had people that would come in town and it was a new business that opened and they put up an A-frame sign out on Pacheco Highway, and that sign was on the sidewalk, so it impeded public right-of-way to use the sidewalk. And there is a setback in regards to placing a temporary sign. But nonetheless, these are some of the suggestions that I've just written down in regards to the temporary sign ordinance. As Stacy indicated, and with what I had indicated earlier, we don't have anything that outlines what the size of a sign is that sits out as far as an A-frame or T-frame or any other type of frame sign, and where it can be placed. I know a lot of signs that I see are less than 5 feet off the right-of-way, and part of that could be is because many years back part of our highway was taken away and people lost their frontage for that highway widening. So perhaps if there's grass area there which is less than 5 feet from the sidewalk, that might be the exception of where they can put a T sign down or an A-frame. But I do believe that we definitely need to tighten up what type of signs we want out there, how long they're to be out there, and the size of it, the materials that are used to make the sign, and where they can be displayed. So those are just some of the areas of suggestions that I have for staff. I'm sure there are others that they can think of that I can't think of right now. But again, I want to apologize to Councilman Severa that I wasn't trying to include the permanent sign in on this to delay anything. But I do want to make sure that whatever the staff comes up with, that whether it's going to be establishment for minor adjustment, whether it's going to be for a car dealership, that we're not going to have any really ostentatious, crazy stuff out there for any business. as far as their display is concerned. It needs to be within good taste because we're a city that's moving forward and not living in the past. So that's my take on it. And thank you for the time.
And include worn out signs. I think I have someone here that would like to speak. And Marlene, did you want to say a few words?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My name is Marlene Alves, Marlene Signs and Designs. Fellow members, I'd just like to bring something to your attention. There's a great concern about the signage issue. I don't know if you have noticed or not, but possibly 80% of the signs are coming down and being cut down because of the ordinance that was passed in 2010, and now they are citing them. They're coming down, I'd say a good 80%. The difference of 2003 and prior to that is 0.25, 25%, stating that this is because of a beautification. Many of these signs are very beautiful. Sandblasted, gold leaf, you name it. I have been in business for over 30 years. These signs that I have done in the past are being cut down because of beautification acts. I really do feel that this really does need to be looked into. The people that I have talked to are so upset and just taking down their signs just because of the way the people and the code enforcement have talked to them. 3 weeks ago, as a Monday, if you didn't comply, it would have been $100. 5 days later, $250. If on the 11th day, it would be $550 per day if you did not comply. And then, however, if you would pay $550, you could have twice as much. I think this is so unfair to do to these business companies, of all these people that are having to redo their signs. If there's a few people, and I spent 45 minutes on just driving around taking pictures of things that are not in compliance and beautification of the actual city. I mean, it's easy to see, rather than knocking down these business people, which need the advertisement. And not only in the banners or any other type, but also hand-painted signs, hand-painted promotional signs. I have done this for many years, and you could check out the beautiful signs that I have made. Now, as I can see now, the non-permanent painted signs are not even mentioned anymore. I am licensed, and this is what I do as a business. Not only the hand-painted signs, which is kind of a historical thing, and not many people do it anymore, but it still is done, and I wish for that also to be put into the non-permanent signs. When I've been discussing things with people, say on the highway side, one gentleman told me he was charged $45 and he could have up to 7 banners and 3 flags. But I was painting a particular advertisement, almost completed. 85% of it was done. But however, I did not come 1 foot from the bottom of the window, so it was removed. So this has greatly affected me and my business. And I really feel that this all could have been resolved if perhaps we had a workshop and invite these people in and tell them, you know, you are over, we can do this. But to do it in this manner is just immoral. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And I really do hope this really would be looked into. Look around. Look.
Okay, Marlene, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Silvera. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak? I am so sorry. Come on up.
My name's Adam. 2 to 5, or how long? 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Thank you. So some of the signs that are coming down, there are complaints of that they don't like the city regulations, so they're not cleaning what they're taking down. It's left filthy. The Beautification Act is not being represented at that time. That also needs to be a problem that's rising. I'm no longer operating. I was operating, and I would help my mother's customers to fill out the paperwork. Some of the paperwork is unclear. The complaints that I was having with the customer was that there's no kindness when they had it. She was mentioning a workshop, but also courtesy training for the individuals who are enforcing the code, so that the like another person, a third party, myself, wouldn't have to go in there to help them distressing with their problems. Also, the ordinances for the operation of a business to go into operation, that it's more specific. It doesn't change or it increases the 10-inch letters for addresses. There's plenty who are under code. If we want to be really strict with it, sure, that should be something addressed with the Beautification Act with their signs. Also, their phone number. Phone numbers are not listed to have a contact of information, to contact their information. Some are missing their hours. These things, I believe that they needed to be in operation, and those are not being met. So please do address that. And then also, I think it was last Wednesday, a lady, there was an elementary school being built 500 feet, so she had to dismiss herself, and I do feel that people who own businesses here should be dismissed, namely Mike and Mr. William, who own businesses who have to apply to these codes, that it's within its conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, thank you. We have your comments noted. This meeting is being recorded, so and Stacy is taking notes. So we will please okay. We will be looking into all the facts that you mentioned. Okay. All right, Mr. Silvera.
So, I don't think that we need a formal motion or anything, but I just want to make sure from Stacy and Bill, that do you guys have direction on what to come back with? Are you comfortable with that? What you've heard tonight up here?
So just to recap from the discussion, it's to come back with a 1 and 2 option, putting them together, and then to specifically look at time duration, materials, size, also provide some examples, and also the location of signs, and then look at exempt signs, which are those A-frame and I-frame signs, those regulations, and then weathered signs as well. So based on my notes, I think that captured it all.
Okay.
Let me know if I missed anything.
No, I think that pretty much covers the discussion that happened up here. And then my next question is going to be and I don't expect this back in a month or 2 months, can you give me a time frame as to when we could expect something back?
I know that Mr. Vaughn and I are also working on the business license ordinance and massage therapist ordinance, and we do have those scheduled in. So I would say, and those are in September, that a good target date would possibly be the first meeting in October or the second meeting in October, so that would be October 4th or 18th.
Let's shoot for the 18th, give yourself a little bit of time, and then, and all I would ask is that if, as we get closer to that timeline, if, it's not going to happen, just give us a brief update. I don't know if you could just do it during one of your reports that, hey, I just want to make sure there's a date that I can look forward to seeing it back on. So I'm going to take October the 18th. Okay?
Sounds good.
Is that good, Mr. Vaughn? That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on item number 8? Okay, item number 9, designation of voting delegate and alternate for the 2017 League of Cities, California League of Cities, LLC annual conference being held September 13th through the 15th, 2017 in Sacramento. Designate the mayor as a voting delegate and Mayor Pro Tem Silvera as alternate voting delegate. Ms. Silvera?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to designate yourself as the voting delegate and myself as the alternate voting delegate for the League's annual conference.
I'll second that. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, so if I'm voting, you guys are going to wait for me. You're not going to take off. So.
I cannot make any promises, Mayor. It's a long time away.
That's not going to happen again. Okay, let's go on to item 10, advisement of public notices. There's no report tonight. City Manager, Alex Terrazas. Oh, you want?
I think I turned it off.
There we go.
I just would like to send best wishes to the Mariposa community that is significantly impacted currently by a wildland fire. We do have 2 fire engine crews that have responded to assist under mutual aid. And we also sent a team of officers, 4 officers, to assist with evacuation. So best wishes to the Mariposa community and to our folks. Be safe.
Thank you. Let's go on to City Council member reports. Tonight we'll start with Mr. Faria. Thank you, Mr. Faria. Okay, let's go on to Mrs. Santos.
I wanted to start off by, Mark, thanking you very much, for you and also Dan, for taking me around the fleet a couple weeks ago. So thank you very much for that. And also I want to thank our firemen for 4th of July. I definitely heard a lot of sirens, so thank you very much for all of that. So short and sweet. Thank you.
Which 4th of July? The one last Saturday or this one? Okay, let's go on to Mrs. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start off by indicating that this past Monday, MCAG held a regional vision public workshop here at City Hall as to how Measure V money is going to be used for street repairs and such. I'm not quite sure how much advertisement went out for that. I know there was a lot of advertisement that went out for the passage of the bill, but I only saw maybe 1 or 2 people from the public here. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to request that you ask MCAG to see if they can reschedule another meeting and do some extensive advertisement, because this is important for the community to know how their tax dollars are going to be spent in regards to the repair of roads and all the other amenities, bicycle lanes, and all the other things that that tax dollar is going to be paying for. So there may be questions from the community other than just their standard presentation that they did, and I would like to see that happen. I'd like to thank the city for allowing me to attend the League of Cities conference for mayors and city council people. There was some really great materials that were disseminated to the attendees, and in particular to strategic planning for the vision of cities on short-term and long-term basis. So I'll be working with our city manager to see if this council can schedule something of that sort, because as we were told, most cities that attended that league conference either have annual or semi-annual meetings with their council and city manager for future planning as to what the council sees, as far as how the council sees the direction of the city going. Not usurping any authority of staff in any way, but to have their vision as to what you're looking at maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and a 20-year out planning and further. And I thought the information was quite helpful. And it seems that most cities are doing it. Some of the council members from other cities that I've spoken to, they do it on a semi-annual basis where after election cycle, they have a session where they can bring their new staff on, their new elected officials on, and bring them up to speed as to what the future is for the city. I had a couple of calls from some members of the community in Los Banos on several issues, but one of the things in particular that was brought to my attention is people have different ways of being able to digest information. Some people are tactile and they want to hold binders and newspapers in their hands. For the most part, our younger generation will go to the internet and look up whatever they need to find. But one request that had been brought to my attention was that they wanted to have access to our city budget to be able to look at it in entirety without having to pay for it. And I'm not sure if we have a copy here on the counter at City Hall, but another idea that I came up with is perhaps maybe we can have a copy at our city library and also at the community center to allow people to go to the community center, sit down, and digest the budget if they would like to see it. So those are my reports for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to Mr. Silvera.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, just to piggyback on what Ms. Lewis commented on, and I tell them it's excellent reading. Those budgets are fun, so enjoy yourself. It's you can become an expert like Kim and Sonia on those things after you've read a few of them. Mr. Mayor, I really don't have anything to report. I'm just thankful that we did get this signed ordinance going down the track. I'm looking forward to seeing something and getting some resolution to that idea. And then, Dr. Marshall, the lone soldier still in the room. Thank you for, well, Kathy's back there too, but you did step out for a second. He's been here the whole time. I do look forward to meeting with you. I think it's very important that we have a lot of conversations and try to, where we can, work together on issues that benefit our students and the city of Los Banos. So I'm glad to see you here, and I look forward to working with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I can tell you Dr. Marshall's already been very helpful. We have been working hard and on the collaboration of a Hawk system signalization at 11th and 152, which is such a dangerous intersection. And now we just need to nudge Caltrans along a little bit to tell us where the funding's going to come from and to make students safe in that intersection. So thank you, Dr. Marshall, and we'll continue our work together until this is finished. Thank you. This last week, we had the Italian celebration. As many of you know, this community was mostly Italian and Portuguese at one time, and they have the Portuguese celebration, they have the Italian celebration. And all I know is you have plates that are this big, and they're just heaped the food. Remind me to invite you next year. And so So it was a free lunch for everyone. It was very, very good. Everyone enjoyed it, even both cultures, the Italians and the Portuguese, with the diversity and the excellent food that we have in this community. I'm glad that the old traditions haven't died, and they're still continuing with this celebration after almost 100 years. What else? Oh, the meeting that we had on Monday night, Mrs. Lewis, you are exactly right. There was very little advertisement that went out, and it didn't give people a chance to state what they possibly wanted to state about the future of roads in Merced County. But I can tell you that we're going to have another meeting. Okay, we've already spoken to MCAG, and we've lodged our displeasure with what's happened, and we're going to have another meeting over here. And so tonight is in Livingston, and the next night is in Merced, and that's not much notice because we just received it. What, Alex? Wednesday or Thursday of last week? Yeah. And it wasn't enough time. There were only 2 citizens present, and the rest were MCAG staff, the consultants, and thank you to the Los Banos staff who came. And it's my understanding that is it on Friday, Mr. Fachin, that you're going to come up with a list of projects?
Friday when we discuss it.
I'm sorry. Let me get this. Yeah. Oops. Okay.
Yeah, it's on Friday when we discuss the list with them.
Okay.
Overall list. It's a long-term list. Yeah.
Okay. Because I will tell you that my concern is that it was a fair and equitable distribution of funds. To date, it hasn't been. So we're going to be working hard to make sure that it's a fair and equitable distribution from west side to east side, which hasn't happened. So we'll be giving you more information on that later. But for now, there will be another meeting. And Rick, thank you for your, am I supposed to say something or is this a secret? Not anymore. Okay. Rick Spalding, our IT director, is retiring in January. Well, you've announced it, and so I'd like to announce it and thank you for all your years of service to the city of Los Banos. We're going to be losing 2 good people. We're going to be losing Tim Marison, our fire chief, and we're going to be losing Rick Spalding, our IT director. So I will tell you thank you for the early notification to give us time to find someone else to replace you. But thank you so much for what you've done for our city. I very much appreciate it, and I know everyone else does. So with that, let's go to closed session. Public hearing, annual performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, title City Manager. If there's anything to report, we will do so.